Before we begin today, a brief content warning. One of the episodes we are looking at today is the Season 7 episode Closure, which does contain depictions of child death and suicide. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to Things Are Getting Strange, an X-Files Rewatch podcast. I'm Nick.
And I'm Kim.
And as usual, I think we don't have news.
No, I don't think I've got anything today.
It's quiet for a while. As we wait for books to come out, reboots to happen, and yeah, I don't think we're going to get anything else.
I did see in the last week that Perihelion by Claudia Gray, the X-Files book that's coming out in July, is currently up on NetGalley.
Okay.
So anybody who has a NetGalley account, which tends to be kind of reviewers and people like that, but if you have access, you can apply and potentially get a pre-release copy for review.
Ooh. Presumably aren't allowed to tell us about it.
I did used to have a NetGalley account back in my reviewer days, and you were allowed to. Generally speaking, they wanted you to review things up front, but it was kind of frowned upon to spoil things for people too much.
Okay. So if any of you do have NetGalley accounts, let us know what you think.
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear what people's first impressions are.
However, in the absence of any other news, we're going to have to close the book on Samantha Mulder, I think. Who knew this was coming? We did. We knew this was coming.
We did kind of touch on it last week.
We did, but now we can't get around it anymore. We've got to actually talk about this thing.
Yep.
So, Closure, directed by Kim Manners, written by Spotted and Carter. Sorry, Chris Carter. So, Carter! First broadcast on the 13th of Feb 2000. Guest stars. This gets a little weird.
Okay.
So, Anthony Hild is Harold Pillar.
Yep.
You know him best as Dr. Chilton in Silence of the Lambs and Red Dragon.
Yep, the original ones.
The only Silence of the Lambs and Red Dragon.
Oh, true.
The second Red Dragon, not Manhunter.
Yeah, and not the Chilton who's in Hannibal, the TV series.
Correct. So he is the middle. He's the middle. Must be the middle Chilton.
The middle Chilton.
Because there was a different one in Manhunter.
Yep, correct.
Yeah. Okay, so he was also in Deep Rising.
Okay.
He's the captain of the boat.
Oh,
Who breaks his leg.
He is.
Yeah, I did that as well. 8mm.
Mm.
X-Men: The Last Stand.
Who's he in X-Men?
He's like an FBI interrogator or someone.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember him
He's
at all.
not actually an X-Men.
No. Okay, so I've never seen this film, but I'm going to list it for a reason, which is The Pelican Brief, which is one of the John Grisham film versions.
Okay.
No, The Client and all the rest of them.
Yeah.
Never seen it. Hang on to that. He was also, and this one gets a bit weird, he was in the TV show Sam and Cat. Which, I know you're looking at me blankly, so I'll explain. So, you remember I've mentioned iCarly a few times?
Yeah.
I only know this because I've watched an internet review about iCarly, Victorious, and the spin-offs.
Yep.
Sam and Cat is a spin-off of iCarly and Victorious.
Okay.
But Anthony Hild is in that episode playing Dr. Chilton.
Surreal.
In a kids' TV show.
Surreal.
Like, no kid is going to understand what this means at all, but we're doing Silence of the Lambs. Anyway, so the other guest star of note is Stanley Anderson, who played Lois Schoninger, who this is the FBI psychiatrist Scully talks to, who I don't think it's introduced, isn't named. That's him.
Okay.
That one guy who looks at the videotape of Mulder.
Yeah.
So, he was in RoboCop 3.
Okay.
A film called Canadian Bacon, which is one of these comedy films in the 90s that was not as funny as I wanted it to be.
Okay.
Shining, the TV version.
Oh dear.
Yep. But he's also in Seinfeld, and this one cracked me up. He is Judge Vanderlei.
Oh, Art Vanderlei.
He is Judge Art Vanderlei. How about that?
The judge and not the importer-exporter.
Exactly, the judge. He was also played the president twice in Armageddon and The Rock. So apparently Michael Bay goes to this guy and says, "You want to be the president?"
Fair enough.
He was also in Spider-Man. And now, why I asked you to keep hold of those things is, he's also in Red Dragon, and he's also in The Pelican Brief.
Okay.
So apparently they just drove to the film studios and just grabbed the two people coming off set and said, "You're coming on the X-Files."
Well, it's usually the Star Trek set.
I know, or the Frasier set. Sometimes Seinfeld, but I thought it was odd for two guest stars.
In the same episode, yeah.
To come from the same two films.
Would you like to give us a synopsis of the episode?
Do I have to?
Yes.
Okay. So taken from Wikipedia, which, for a change, doesn't have this as plot, it has this as events.
Fair enough.
Mulder and Scully aid the Sacramento police in the investigation of a brutal murder committed by Truelove, the owner of a Santa village. As remains of more children are discovered, he admits killing 24 children, but denies murdering Amberlynn Lapierre, who disappeared from her home in the previous episode. Mulder is approached by psychic Harold Pillar, who tells Mulder that he has helped with law enforcement across the world and has proved in various cases that children have been taken by walk-ins, beings composed of starlight. Pillar believes that the walk-ins save children who suffer terrible fates. Scully becomes worried about Pillar's influence over Mulder. The agents return to Washington, D.C., where Mulder keeps searching for evidence in the case. Meanwhile, Pillar gets a vision of Mulder's mother, who recently died by suicide, leading Mulder to April Air Force Base. Scully finds evidence that Samantha's disappearance is linked to the Smoky Man. When she returns to her apartment, she finds him waiting for her. He tells her he had called off the search for Mulder's sister when she vanished because he knew she was dead. When Mulder returns to April Air Force Base, he uncovers proof that Samantha lived with the Smoky Man along with his son Jeffrey Spender, and when she's forced to undergo painful tests. Scully then finds a 1979 police report of a girl matching Samantha's description and learns she was taken to a hospital emergency room. She and Mulder find the nurse who treated her, and the nurse describes how Samantha disappeared the same way as Amber, without a trace. Mulder later walks through the forest and receives a vision of Samantha along with the spirits of other children, including Amberlynn. Upon telling Scully and Pillar of his vision, Pillar reacts badly upon hearing that his son is also dead, while Mulder accepts that his sister is dead and in a better place. When Scully comforts Mulder and asks if he is alright, he responds with a choked, "I'm fine, I am free."
Thank you. I know you don't think highly of this episode.
I don't think highly of this episode. And I will always remember SFX, the science fiction magazine that's still running in this country, absolutely tore into this when it circulated in America. They were absolutely incensed that this was the solution to everything.
Yeah, my finding in reading old reviews of this is that the reviews at the time are really polarising for this one. It was love it or hate it, there was no in between. Though it should be noted that when it's been revisited in recent times, the reviews are wholly positive for it.
Odd. I'm going to go with, I don't think this is very good at all.
Oh, you're in the former camp then.
Well, how did you feel? Do you feel more amenable to it, or?
I don't know. I don't like it for a solution of what's happened to Samantha. Just because we teased at this, and you've got to ignore a whole lot of evidence, like the alien bounty hunter saying she's still alive, when she's literally never has been.
Yes, well, I realised I forgot to bring up last week of why was that scene in here then?
Yeah. But I was going to say...
Yep, I got that.
But I think it is a really, really nicely captured send-off for her. Especially the final scenes, and especially the closure it does give Mulder there. It was one of the facts I read is that Kim Manners wanted it to be tearful of Mulder breaking down in tears because he realised that Samantha was dead. But it was David Duchovny's suggestion. He said, actually, I've got an idea, see how this looks. And he played it with the kind of beatific smile on his face. You know, just the sheer relief of knowing that she didn't suffer instead. And, you know, I think that does work a lot better in the finale. It is fair. More like a weight lifting off Mulder and just the relief of knowing that she's not in pain.
Yeah. Okay, I would give you that this is a nice send-off for her. But I'd also say you need to do this in like season 1 or something, not drag it out for 7 years and do this.
I think it's unsatisfying just because it's, I think we mentioned it last time, the Laura Palmer effect.
Yeah.
Is you've dragged this on so long, this isn't what we were expecting, and it's not satisfactory in that regard. It's
not a satisfactory solution to the problem. And it's also, as you said, having the alien bounty hunter tell Mulder outright that she's still alive, when he thinks Mulder's about to die, why would he even bother lying? Other than, the alien's just lie anyway, but still, why have that scene in there? And why also, Colony is my sticking point still.
Yeah.
Is that neither of Mulder's parents should have actually entertained her for a second. Like, you're not our daughter. She's gone. We know that. But also, I was thinking, why is Cigarette Smoking Man lying halfway through the episode in such a bizarre, stupid, pointless lie?
Because all he does is lie?
I know, but you think you'd have limits, wouldn't you? Sort of saying, yes, I called off the search because I knew she's dead. You called off before she was returned and then lived with you on an Air Force base for 7 years? And then she ran away into an emergency room and got taken away by the Starlight Beings. Do we want to talk about how the walk-ins work and the fact that, is their timing a bit off?
I'm not sure it's accurate to call them walk-ins anymore, Because as of Red Museum, we had the definitions of walk-in, which is actually what walk-ins are, the idea of a spirit that can possess somebody and act through them.
Yeah, which is
not what these things are.
No, so we don't, whatever the... Well, I do remember SFX derisively said is basically the solution is she was abducted by aliens, returned, and then abducted by fairies.
Yeah. I jokingly said fairies because I didn't realise it was this fairy-like a few episodes ago. But yeah, it does have that feel of the kind of unsilly court coming for you.
Yeah. But I mean, okay, I do get that they want to stop the child suffering, which gives them some kind of future sight.
Yeah.
And for Anne Boleyn, that checks out, because as far as we know that she wasn't taken by Santa Claus, because last time we weren't sure how on earth that worked, because no one saw her taken. It turns out she was taken by the fairies.
Yeah.
Or I don't want to say fairies, that's pejorative, isn't it?
The Stardust people.
Stardust people. Starlight.
I keep thinking Stardust because of Carl Sagan with We Are All Star-Stuffs.
Yeah.
But it's not. They call them something like Starlight Beings in the episode.
So I get in last episode, Sign and Sight, it's the Starlight Beings come and take Anne Boleyn before Santa Claus can get to her.
They basically snatch children immediately before something bad's going to happen to them.
Yeah. Now, bear with me here. Samantha doesn't make a lot of sense here then, because they let her get abducted by aliens, returned to Sixth Extinction Command on that Air Force base.
Not necessarily abducted by aliens. It could still be the Syndicate.
Okay, so abducted by whatever method necessary, and she was involved with the aliens somehow, because we've got to hang on to that's how the clone series came from.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, whole chunks of this thing
Again,
just
it could
ejected.
still be the Syndicate. It's not necessarily aliens at all.
But unless we trust Mulder's remembering of his abduction experience, which we don't know.
We don't trust it. It keeps changing.
It's true. Okay, she was taken for whatever reason, and... Oh, hang on. No. If we can trust what Cancer Man said to Fowley, she was taken along with the other people, including Cassandra Spender, as the collateral for the colonization plan.
Yeah.
Because Mr. Mulder didn't decide in time, and that's why they had to grab her from the house.
Yeah.
So if we trust that, the aliens have to have taken her.
Mm.
But anyway, the sequence of events is the aliens took her for whatever reason. It could be the Syndicate, but there's a series certainly implied it's the aliens. And then returned her, and she lived with Smoky Man and Spender for some period of time, undergoing horrible tests that Spender wasn't subjected to. And then she escaped the Air Force Base, got picked up by a sheriff, taken to an emergency room. The Smoky Man shows up to get her back, and the Starlight Beings take her then.
Mm.
Could they not have done it in 1974?
Good point.
If they meant to stop suffering? I don't know, I just feel it's... is it me, or is it like the whole, we need to get rid of her, but we need this stuff to happen first?
I'm also not sure where we draw the cutoff of child then, because Samantha is the oldest child in that group of ghost children we see by maybe 8 or 9 years.
That's also a good point.
Most of the rest of them are little, 4 or 5 year olds.
Yeah. So I think it's that split thing of the episode is very beautiful how it ultimately ends.
Mm.
The logic of getting to it is just terrible. Because I think we also talked about it, is the other problem with Samantha is, given all the clones popping up and given all the other instances she's occurred in, and particularly Talthakumi and Heronvolk, the implication is she's something different.
Yeah.
They've done something different to her, or she's been used as the basis for something important, and she was selected for this for a reason.
Both her and the little boy, her counterpart.
And that has just been dropped. Yeah. We don't know who the boy was. We don't know why there's clones of Samantha wandering around.
Mm.
And this resolves none of that again.
As we mentioned last week when we spoke about Sein and Zeit, the thought process was that they, at this point, thought this was going to be the last season of The X-Files and they needed to do something quick just to put it to bed. And Laura Palmered it up spectacularly.
Yeah. I mean, I know some people might have been angry about it, but if you just said she was taken away and, that civil war with the other aliens, she died due to whatever facility she was in, or the ship she was on was destroyed by rebels.
Mm.
I think it's the whole... The episode isn't geared around aliens at all, and that's kind of like Samantha Mulder's whole thing.
Is there an opposite to women in refrigerators? Because that's what we've got here.
I don't know if there is.
Because I don't believe that necessarily you should kill a major character without a point because you remove any stories you could tell.
Yeah.
But this is the utmost of dissatisfaction. This is like Akira level of dissatisfaction. Have you have this great mystery pointing towards one person, you get there and you discover they've been dead the whole time.
Yeah. Though I'll give Akira credit for then Akira came back to life and then wrecked the world. So
yeah, Samantha hasn't done that, at least yet.
Yeah, but that would have been a bit more satisfying if she'd shown up as, like, alien goddess or something.
But it's the journey. You want to find something at the end of it, and it's not very satisfying to think, we've come this far and we've found a corpse.
We didn't even find a corpse, she's just been dead the entire time.
And a starlight.
Yeah. We don't have a body, we don't have any kind of... All we have is scattered police reports. I think the problem is that the story ended before Mulder knew to go looking for it. Ultimately, if you look at the timeline.
Yeah.
That's not satisfying. But you've also made me realise that she should come back as, I've forgotten her name from StarCraft.
Kerrigan.
She should be Kerriganing out. Wouldn't that be cool?
You've got her as kind of like the Locutus of whatever this alien race is coming back.
Yeah. It would be cheesy, but that would be, have built to something. Like, there's something specific about Samantha, which means they've done it. I mean, it's also those stray lines of Cigarette Smoker Man saying Mulder's vital to the project. And you can kind of get the gist there of if Samantha's been cloned like this and used all over the place, there's something about her that makes her special, and it's got to be genetic, so Mulder must also have the same attributes.
We kind of touched on that already, though, with Mulder being a hybrid.
Yeah, but then that's purely because of Tunguska, though. That wasn't anything special about Mulder. Which is also slightly annoying, because there's all these dropped lines they've had over the years.
If they had gone down this route, though, you'd be being unsatisfied because you'd be saying this is all kind of like Deus Ex Machina. Mulder is the chosen one.
I absolutely would, but I would, admittedly, but I also say that's their own fault for putting those lines in, because they don't have to be in the episode. Cigarette Smoker Man can have some bullshit explanation for why he wants Mulder alive. You don't have to say, as you know, he's vital to the project. Because saying that to the bounty hunter is the bounty hunter not saying, what are you talking about, man? That's kind of where I sort of get annoyed with it.
He's an absolute liability. Why are we even keeping him alive?
Yeah. And Cigarette Smoker Man can have whatever justification he wants, but saying he's vital to the project, as you know, means that Bounty Hunter understands that Mulder has a function, which we've never seen kick off.
No.
As you said, it's the whole, they thought they were out of time. And I would also venture the opinion that Simon Zeit was meant to be a one-off. I think it's like Christmas Carol and Emily, in that the second half isn't connected to the first half.
It is a tonal shift.
Well, also, like, the parents of Anne Boleyn do not show up.
No, we get Harold Pillar instead.
Yeah, and we'll talk about Harold in a minute, because I do feel you had some interesting comments on Harold Pillar. But yeah, I mean, the ultimate fate of Samantha Mulder, I don't know, it just feels like you've also removed Mulder's quest for truth. I mean, I know, the Laura Palmer one's a great example of someone saying, we've got to solve this eventually, where it can just be the MacGuffin that will lead them on forever. I don't think anyone would have minded too much if it was an unresolvable quest, that this was an ongoing question that you'd never get an answer to.
I think your problem is you're putting us in that position and saying you wouldn't mind that, but at the time people did.
I know.
And what they noticed was that this was the fuel that kept the conspiracy going. For the first few seasons anyways, everyone wanted to know what happened to Samantha. And then interest in the conspiracy started tailing off because they weren't getting answers. So they thought, oh hell, before everybody gets completely sick of this, we're going to have to tell them.
Yeah, but at the same time, it feels odd not making it a conspiracy episode. Or make it a conspiracy episode in kind of in spirit, rather than
It is a conspiracy episode.
It is, but it doesn't feel like one. The other bit, and I know it's really petty to do it, but it's that you couldn't find an actress who looked a little bit like the old Samantha.
Yeah,
they don't even try to make her look right.
It should be noted, we mentioned the critics, but also the cast and crew were polarised about this episode too.
I'm pleased to hear that. I mean, Duchovny was quite pleased with what he did.
Duchovny liked the send-up, especially the fact he had his own kind of impact on it. But at the same time, it was kind of pitched to him as he was getting tired of playing the person who's always sadly looking for his lost sister. And they did pitch it to him as, this is the last time you have to play that version of Mulder.
Yeah, I think at the same time, it's like, hey, Dave, you've got, 13 episodes left now? You're not going to do this for longer anyway.
I think it was Paul Rabwin, who was the one in particular who kind of commented on the fact that they were just so sick of Samantha and they were glad to put her to bed at this point.
Yeah.
I guess it's like when we blew up the Syndicate a couple of seasons ago, in that now you can tell more stories. This is the last bit of the old conspiracy that we've done away with.
Yeah. But then I think we also made the complaint, though, on Sixth Extinction, was it wasn't appreciably different from the conspiracy before. You just had less people hanging around.
You've removed the baggage, but the kind of essence of it is the same.
Yeah, and this one at least isn't that. At the same time, it doesn't feel like it actually connects to anything.
No. In fact, I'm willing to wager that a lot of new viewers may have had no idea who Samantha was, because she's not been mentioned in ages, even.
No. Also, I can't. Was it? But before Sixth Extinction with the whole. Oh, I don't believe that was really Samantha.
Yeah.
That's your justification for keeping this going. I mean, I suppose that's the other one. Is why wasn't Redux it? Because you could have stopped with Redux, and that could have been the answer.
Yeah, true.
I mean, to be fair, what she says in Redux is barely different to Closure. You're just missing the abducted by starlight beings.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Chris, what are you doing? Stop copying your own homework. Anyway, Harold Pillar.
Yes, Harold Pillar. Our friendly neighbourhood psychic who's just popped out of nowhere for this.
Which, again, is one of my bits of it doesn't feel like Silent Sight was designed to feed into another episode, because he shows up at the start of the episode conveniently. But you pointed out that if you bring Beyond the Scene to proceedings, this episode becomes a bit more suspect.
Well, we do know that Mulder is not averse to psychic phenomena. He does know it exists. You know, Clyde Bruckman, things like that. He's seen it before in working. He's also seen the stupendous Yappy, who he was initially sceptical of, and, well, not just initially, he was sceptical because he can spot a fraud. I think the big one for me in parallel, because I mentioned last week as well, the similarities between this and Beyond the Sea. Because in both of them, you've got Mulder or Scully losing a direct family member and receiving messages from beyond the grave from them, essentially.
Yeah.
And you get even more of that in this episode. There's a scene where Tina's ghost speaks to Mulder in his sleep.
And we've no idea what she says either.
We don't know what he says. It never really goes anywhere. But we also have the connection in Beyond the Sea in that both of them focused on a psychic character who believed they were transmitting a message from said loved one to Mulder or Scully. And in Beyond the Sea, Mulder had no time for Luther Lee Boggs at all.
Nope.
Because he knew that Boggs could not possibly know these things. He didn't trust Boggs inherently. In this episode, he trusts Pillar from the absolute word go. No questions asked, even when he discovers that he's a schizophrenic who's off his meds.
Yep.
Still trusts him beyond a doubt. And, you know, we see from the audience perspective is Pillar probably is on the level.
Oh, yeah. He's seeing visions of Tina. She calls Mulder to just be a walk-in and write that note, which also passes without much commentary.
Yeah, true. And also, he does direct them to the place where Samantha lived on the military base.
Yeah.
Without any way he could possibly have known that.
No. And I think the problem is, again, you could make an argument that that's season 1 Mulder versus season 7. But aside from, as you said, Mulder will call out the fake ones when he finds them and will believe the real ones when he finds them. There's no shifting of his process over time. This is very much a case of, I decided to trust Harold this time.
Yeah.
And Scully, bless her, is trying to do her best and being a bit flippantly unbelieving at points. She's trying to be rational, but some of it feels a bit mean as well.
She does kind of give her motivation early in the episode when someone comments about how she could be hurting Mulder by saying, no, this is it, line in the sand, I want to give him closure.
Yeah.
Which they do, ultimately.
They do.
He gets his closure.
He gets his closure. In that patch of woods when he doesn't talk to the nurse who... Can you imagine rocking up to someone's house and saying, you used to work in an emergency room 26 years ago? Do you remember this one particular night?
Actually, yes, I do. I remember it in graphic chronological detail.
Yeah.
To be fair, it was a weird night, but still, the level of detail she recalls of this.
Yeah. It's...
Can you remember what you did in your job 20 years ago?
No. Well, I could probably take a wild guess, but not a specific day unless something really weird happened.
Mm.
And I can see government officials showing up, but it's not that huge a memorable thing, given that she just vanished.
From a locked room, though.
Yeah, that would give you some pause, but I don't know, I think I'd be more worried about these 3 weirdos who've rocked up to my house in the middle of the night. And one of them has just wandered off into the woods and now has come back looking stoned.
Mm.
I suppose that's the other bit you get a bit weirded out of. Did that work anywhere? Could Mulder have been anywhere to go there? That, or was that particular patch of woods that's where the children were gathered in the starlight? Or
I read an interesting anecdote from this episode from Kim Manners, in that he realised there's the scene where all the kind of child ghosts rise out of their shallow graves in the place where Santa's been killing them.
Yeah.
He realised as he got the children lying in these graves that it could cause immense psychological damage. So he decided that he would opt for not kind of making any reference to what they were actually shooting, and instead start referring to the graves as the children's forts and like, get out of your forts now and things like that. So I thought it was quite a cute little anecdote around it.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, imagine the children years later watching the episode going, what?
And of
You
course,
lied to me.
the children were the most complex shot in this shoot. This is day for night shooting and it being overlaid to give that kind of transparent, ethereal effect.
Yeah. They have reminded me of, it's other things that have just dropped by the wayside, is Santa Claus. The serial killer at the heart of this thing is just off screen for the entire episode.
Yeah, we don't mention him again.
We don't.
He's been arrested now.
He has.
The thing that kept sticking in my head watching it, and it's because on my stream, shameless plug, I recently finished playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Yeah.
The most recent Final Fantasy game to come out. Now, in the Final Fantasy VII universe, there's this whole idea of when you die, your spirit returns to the planet to kind of like be reborn in another form.
Yeah, I think you don't necessarily come back as yourself, you get intermixed with everything else that's ever lived, and basically you become part of another life form. You don't come back.
Yeah, but the point in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is there is a part where the main character takes this entirely to heart and kind of stops seeing death as a big deal because he's saying, well, they're not dying, they're returning to the planet. And someone points out, no, this is still sad. They've died. You're never going to see that person again. Even if they come back, they're not going to be who they were. And, kind of hammers this home to him. Which is the same kind of idea we've got here as Mulder coming out with a big smile saying, she's dead. At least she didn't suffer. It's like, no, Mulder, she's still dead. Your great search that's taken your life has come to an end and you've discovered it's entirely pointless. This should be more of an emotional impact.
Yes. Well, as I said before, it's like, has been pointless the entire time, since the first time you had hypnotherapy. But you've also, weirdly, and I think we'll leave it a few months before we ever got into it, of the other parallel to Rebirth of, that thing about trying to make clear to Cloud that it's still sad, and how the end of the thing botches that lesson so badly.
Yeah. If anyone's watched my stream, they'll know I didn't like the end of Rebirth in any way. I've been quite vocal about that. But yeah, that's entirely another story.
Yeah, but that's an interesting parallel that both of them have botched the conclusion.
AdversCamber42 on Twitch. We can talk about this more.
Yes. So I didn't think we'd bring up Final Fantasy VII in this, but there we are.
It's just because I played it so recently, and when Mulder was talking about, she's not died, her spirit's moved on, it just made me think of that sequence so much.
She's dead, Mulder. I mean, to be honest, again, I don't understand why Redux wasn't the end of this. You could have just shut down everything at that point. That was the solution. It made sense. It's basically the same solution you've got here, except without abducted by starlight beings. When you were twice the age of everyone else, because despite having foresight, the starlight beings didn't say, maybe being abducted by aliens and then return to horrible medical experiments, maybe we should step in before that. And I do also, I know it's one of these ones where kids are too young at the time, but it feels really odd for her to have spent time with Jeffrey Spender.
A lot of time, apparently, that Spender's never mentioned before.
I know, and it's one of these things where you can kind of you can skate by and sort of say, at no point does Spender ever hear that Mulder's sister Samantha he thinks was abducted by aliens, and not say, I had a stepsister called Samantha. Yeah, she lived with me on this Air Force base with my father.
Did Spender ever figure out that Mulder was his brother? I can't remember.
No, that's because that reveal is in Sixth Extinction, and Spender, as far as we're aware, is dead.
Yeah, so at least you can't go on the basis of, you think that more, if Spender had been aware that he and Mulder were related, he might have made the connection. It's a stage removed, and I can buy that you might not associate your childhood friend who had a very common name with Mulder's sister who had the same very common name.
Yeah. Although, to be fair,
it's not like we have two Calliopes at work here or something like that.
Oh, Calliope Mulder. That's what we'll call her from now on. But that's a good point as well, though, is we kind of just take it as read that Kansaman is indeed Mulder's father, despite the fact that Kansaman has just pointlessly lied about Samantha in this episode. Why would he could have lied at that point as well?
I think nobody's in any doubt for some reason.
No.
Now you think about it, it's odd, but nobody was ever in any doubt that CSM was telling the truth there. Whereas the Cancer Man lies about literally everything else every time he draws breath.
Even pointless things like the search for Samantha and why it was called off.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, I do remember fandom had fastened on to Cancer Man being Mulder's father is either season 2 or season 3, very early on. And as far as I'm aware, that's why demons happen to deviate, to try and wrong foot people.
I guess it makes sense that after Star Wars, everyone kind of hit on the fact that the protagonist and the villain are related in some way as a plot twist.
Especially if they've got that generational distance, they can plausibly do it. And also you've got Cigarette Smoking Man worked with Bill Mulder. He knows Tina Mulder in some capacity. Everyone came to that conclusion, and then everyone concluded that Samantha Mulder was just done as a whole, you were almost right but had the detail wrong. And then just did it as well.
It's interesting you've kind of hit on this not being really a conspiracy episode. There were 2 reviewers that really stuck out to me when I was reading back over old reviews of this episode, as is my hobby now, apparently.
Yeah.
But it was 2 that I've never actually seen before referenced anywhere. It was Bobby Bryant and Tracy Burlinston, who wrote for The State, who called this the worst conspiracy episode.
Yeah, I can see that.
But the reason they gave was kind of interesting, so I will just give you the quote. It was, "A tenet of the X-Files was that Mulder's sister Samantha has been A, kidnapped by aliens, or B, kidnapped by government conspirators." And then they went on to say that the fact that they've kind of instead decided, oh no, she was turned into a spirit the whole time, means that you've just given this kind of insane supernatural explanation for what should have been a sci-fi mystery.
Yes. I think that's a good distillation of the frustration with it.
Yeah, I think that sums it up nicely of why, when you kind of boil this whole down, it doesn't give you what you want.
No.
Is the X-Files has its supernatural elements, but Samantha has always been the conspiracy, which has always been staunchly science fiction.
Yeah. Well, I think I tried to make that point last week of you can't crash these 2 sides of the X-Files into each other without damaging both of them.
Yeah.
And I think the other clarification I would make is, while this is what I wanted, not getting what I wanted possibly wouldn't be as bad if it fit with the rest of it. It's the fact it doesn't fit and I don't like it is the problem.
You don't like a lot of the X-Files when we get down to it.
Well, I've got a fair point, but I think this is a particularly low point of, I know you were boxed into a corner, but you somehow chose the worst way out of it.
I think I would have gone down a more satisfactory result, and I don't like saying, if I wrote it, this is what I would have done, but if I wrote this is what I would have done. Is if you were going to kill off Samantha and say she'd never survived, just find some evidence that she didn't survive the tests that were done on her.
Yeah.
You'll find your final damning episode of that, and you can cut out the whole thing with Stardust Crusaders or whatever we're calling them in there.
Oh, we'll call them Stardust Crusaders now.
And we just boil down to the tenet of, we have found a facility that we didn't know about before. We have found the hard evidence and the records of them experimenting on Samantha, and she didn't make it. She died as part of the cloning program. Samantha Zero is no more.
Yes. Well, I was about to say, off the back of that, it would be, I'd have accepted it just fine if she was abducted. They did some stupid early test where she didn't survive. They produced the Samantha clones to have someone else to work with. And that's where the entire clone series came from.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that's still Mulder lost before he even started, but at least that's not convoluted as all hell.
If you want a reason to hate the Cancer Man more, you could still have the whole bit where you discovered she'd been living with him while these tests were been done, but she died as part of the experiment.
Yeah, it's the cake and eating it effect, really, isn't it? The fact they wanted all the possibilities. And it's especially like, and it's still just, I can't get past, it's the same solution as Redux with a bit tacked on the end.
Yeah.
That's what feels frustrating to me.
And that thing is fairies.
Yeah.
Or ghosts, however you want to look at this.
Whatever supernatural force it is, it's, why did you think this was necessary? Because I think just having her be in Dallas in 1966 and shot in the car next to JF Kennedy might have been a more satisfactory solution.
But how did she get there, Nick?
Time travel. We have time travel in the X-Files. She was under the floorboards of the car. Bullet went straight through JFK. Cancer was actually aiming at her, not JFK.
I love this.
I'm going to say that. I prefer that as a stupid solution. Ridiculous, but not as frustrating.
Slightly Umbrella Academy, but other than that.
Little bit. Do we have anything else, or shall we go and hang on Los Angeles under a full moon?
No, I'm gonna give it. I don't hate the episode to the degree you do, and I don't even hate it as much as I remembered it, to be fair. Because I do actually like that final scene, especially from a kind of cinematography perspective. And I like the way David Duchovny acts through it. I like the just relief of knowing that his kind of long search is over. But yeah, it is an utterly, utterly dreadful conspiracy episode.
Yeah. Well, I think then we can make the case a lot of people made about Jose Chung. Is fantastic bit of TV, lousy X-Files episode.
Yeah, I'll take that.
So I'll give it that.
Unfortunately, unlike Jose Chung, you can't remove this from the X-Files.
No. This is actually intrinsically bound, whereas Jose Chung, you can watch it as a 45-minute film and just have a laugh. It's fine.
Doesn't even really need to be Mulder and Scully for Jose Chung to work. It's not that bound into their backstories.
No, though it helps us a bit to know what Mulder's like.
But why the solution couldn't be that Lord Kimboat has taken her, I don't know.
Yeah, that'd also be good. I mean, just sort of come on to whim there is basically, couldn't you have actually had this as a Jose Chung episode where multiple people have multiple answers for where Samantha's gone, and the answer is it's somewhere in the mix. You don't know which one it is.
You're playing it like the time I almost killed Batman.
Yeah, that kind of thing. There were ways there were far more interesting ways they could have run this episode.
Be thou not afraid, Samantha.
There we go. So yes, it does end very beautifully, but I think that's more Kim Manners' contribution than Chris Carter and Spotnitz.
Yeah. And it's a very Sagan ending to it, the We Are All Star stuffs, which is, physics made beautiful.
Yeah, just not here. Don't do it.
Would you like to go on and talk about something that's very polarizingly different?
Yeah, okay. So let's move to LA. It's a full moon, there's a werewolf in the streets, maybe.
Bad cops, bad cops.
What you gonna do?
Bad cops, bad cops.
X-Cops. Directed by Michael Watkins, written by Vince Gilligan, broadcast on the 20th of Feb 2000. There's a few guest stars, but the only one who's done stuff we've actually seen is Lombardo Boyer, who played Deputy Juan Molina, who was in Candyman Day of the Dead.
Alright.
And Frasier.
Huh.
But would you like to, and I know this one's actually kind of more difficult, is like try and summarize what happens?
I mean, I'll give it a go.
I think we have to just do the best stab at this because it's not one that summarizes well at all.
Okay, to explain before I give this largely ad-libbed from Wikipedia summary, this episode is filmed as though it is found footage. It is all presented entirely as though this is an episode of Cops, only with Mulder and Scully in it.
And as I think I mentioned last week, we know Cops basically as a thing that's referenced in other things or done as spoofs like Troops. We don't get this program over here. I've never seen it. I get the gist of it.
Vince Gilligan called it something like a key bit of Americana, but it's not something that's really made it to England.
No, I don't think we have that level of this kind of... This isn't entertaining to us in the same way.
No.
This feels exploitative in a way that other things don't in the same way.
But anyway, the episode begins as though it is a typical episode of Cops, only with scenes of Mulder and Scully investigating spliced into it. We cut to Keith Wetzel, a deputy at the LA County Sheriff's Department. He, with the Cops film crew following him, visiting the home of a Mrs. Guerrero who is reported seeing a monster in the neighbourhood, but Wetzel is expecting to find a large dog. He chases what he believes to be the creature around a corner, but runs back screaming for everyone to flee to the car. They get into Wetzel's police car, but before they can get away, something unseen flips it over. Backup arrives on the screen, and Wetzel claims that he was attacked by gangbangers. The police discover who they believe are the culprits, but we see that it is actually Mulder and Scully. They're initially held up as criminals before it's revealed that the pair are FBI agents. Mulder is very vocal about the fact that they are investigating an alleged werewolf that killed a man in the area during the last full moon. Should be noted that tonight is also a full moon. Scully is absolutely mortified that he'd be staying this on live TV. Mulder argues that it's clearly not live because one of the cops keeps swearing. Scully phones Skinner for advice in what to do, and Skinner just tells her that the FBI has nothing to hide. Therefore, poor Scully, to her chagrin, is forced to continue the investigation with the entire Cops film crew in tow. Mulder, however, is very enthusiastic about that because he believes he can use this as a way to show proof of the paranormal existing to a full national or possibly even international TV audience. Mulder interviews Mrs. Guerrero, who, to his surprise, describes not a werewolf, but actually Freddy Krueger. The composite artist who draws this picture expresses a fear of being alone at night in a dangerous neighbourhood, and they find him a short time later critically injured with large slash marks, much like Freddy Krueger's glove, across his chest. Mulder and Scully manage to find a pink fingernail at the scene, which leads them to a gay couple named Steve and Edie who lived nearby. They witnessed the incidents but didn't see any attacker, claiming that it looked like Ricky was just being attacked by nothing. Scully also shows them the fingernail, and they identify it as belonging to Chantara Gomez, a prostitute who works a corner nearby. The agents track down Chutara, who claims that it's her pimp Chuko who attacked Ricky. She's afraid that he will kill her, as he recently threatened he was going to twist her head around like a chicken. She pleads for protection, and they have Wetzel guard her while they raid a crack house. The two of them find Chuko's body inside and realise that he could not have been responsible because he died of an overdose a few days previously. They hear Wetzel outside shooting wildly, and inside the car he was supposedly guarding, Chantara is dead, her neck twisted all the way round like she feared. When Mulder questions Wetzel about what he was shooting at, he claims he saw the Wasp Man, a monster with stingers for teeth that his older brother used to scare him with stories of as a kid. The other deputies express skepticism, however they do find flattened bullets on the scene, indicating that the bullets that Wetzel was firing off wildly did hit something and didn't pass through. Mulder forms a theory that they are facing an entity that is able to change its form to correspond with the victim's worst fears. Wetzel, Ricky and Chantara all expressed fear shortly before they encountered the entity in different forms. It was visible to them because they were afraid of it, but no one else could see it. Mulder and Scully believe that Steve and Edie are the next obvious targets because they were in the vicinity of Ricky's attack, and it does seem to jump from witness to witness. They head to the house and find the couple in the middle of a heated argument. Edie expresses a deep-seated fear of Steve leaving her, but the couple quickly reconcile. As the entity continues not to show up, Mulder changes his theory, believing that Steve and Edie are safe because, although they are afraid, they're not exhibiting mortal fear, which is what the creature must be tacking onto. Mulder starts to believe that the entity must skip from victim to victim like some kind of disease. On his request, Scully autopsies Chantara's body at the morgue. During the procedure, the assistant who's left with her on site expresses increasing paranoia, specifically a fear after Scully says something flippantly that the corpse may have the hantavirus. Immediately, the assistant exhibits every single symptom of the hantavirus within seconds and promptly dies in front of Scully. Mulder and Scully discuss this death, and in doing so, Mulder realises that Wetzel is in danger of being revisited, given that he's seen the entity twice now, but it hasn't actually killed him. Mulder and Scully return to the crack house, where he discovers that the entity has trapped an injured Wetzel in an upstairs room, as well as absolutely terrifying the cops' film crew who are hiding in a closet downstairs. The agents are unable to enter the room until dawn breaks, when the entity suddenly disappears, and therefore Wetzel's life is spared. With the incident finally over, Scully expresses her sympathies that Mulder was filmed by a national television crew and could not expose the paranormal to the public. Mulder remains hopeful, noting that it all comes down to how the production crew is going to edit the footage together.
Thank you. This is a weird one to talk about, I feel, given that most of the fun is actually watching it.
I really like how people's views of this episode kind of have varied, both when it was kind of aired and afterwards, because some people saw this as a kind of genius piece of postmodern art, kind of mixing these two things, and some people saw it as a shameless promotion for both series that Fox was doing. And I can see how you can diverge in either way when you're looking at it.
Yeah. Well, one thing it put me in mind of a lot, inevitably, is Ghostwatch.
It's very much like Ghostwatch. Would you like to explain what that is? Because American viewers might not be familiar.
No, okay, fair enough. Ghostwatch is a very infamous TV programme from Halloween 1991, I believe, that the BBC put out once, got so many complaints it has never been broadcast on the BBC ever again. What it is a kind of a live programme on this supposed haunted house, and staffed by celebrities of the day like Craig Charles, Sarah Green, Michael Parkinson. And there's cinema sequences, a bank of phone-in operators, and Craig Charles on the ground, and Sarah Green actually inside the house. And basically you get talk to psychologists, people share ghost stories. weird stuff starts happening in and around the house, and basically the tension and terror kind of ratchets up from there. And it's really hard in any conversation to get across the fact that it's genuinely far creepier than you'd have thought. Even knowing that it was done beforehand and it's all fake, it's actually really unnerving. It's strange.
It's a very, very scary show.
It is, and a lot of people would just roll their eyes at it. I certainly did when I heard about it, but it's astonishingly well done. And if you weren't paying attention on Halloween, there's a good chance you thought that something really bad was happening in East London.
I think a lot of the problem was because Ghostwatch was portrayed in the style of Crime Watch, which is a British show that's kind of like, it's a bit on the vein of Cops, where they try and help solve crimes that are ongoing.
It's always afterwards though, and it's always like recreations. It's not a camera crew actually going around with the police.
But it had that kind of feel to it. So if you missed the opening credits and didn't realise that this was all scripted, you could have tuned in and believed it was entirely real, especially as it was an eminent journalist called Michael Parkinson, who people really trusted at the time to be honest and truthful, was the presenter on it.
Yeah.
It was a real Orwell's War of the Worlds sort of feel to it.
Yeah. Although I think it's like on actual account, that's been inflated in reality since then. Though Ghostwatch did have documented complaints about it.
Yeah.
The weird thing about Ghostwatch is a lot of people pointed out that no one should have been fooled. Because, well, you mentioned the opening credits, and there's actually only one credit that gives it away, because there's a written by credit, and that's the only one you had. But people did point out that in the TV listings, it ran for the exact length of time it was meant to, which is about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So everything, all the drama at the end happened exactly on the hour and a half mark, which is a little bit convenient. Although they do actually make out they've cancelled other programs halfway through. Because they say, so, oh, if you're waiting for the next program, we've decided to cancel it and stick with this.
Yeah.
Which is good for verisimilitude.
They did actually release a kind of anniversary DVD of it, I think it was last year, so people, if you're interested, you might be able to get hold of it still. Yeah. It's very good, it's worth watching.
It's absolutely worth watching. It's going to be a slow start, and that's all part of how it actually will work, and why again, I was skeptical about this before going into it. I was interested as a historical curiosity, but a friend of mine actually said, don't just laugh it off. It is actually far more effective than you're ready for.
Yeah.
Bizarrely so, it doesn't feel like it should do, but it absolutely works. And it's even knowing, even though you've got it on DVD, it still works just fine. And so this makes me think of that, given you've got, 20th Century Fox insisting on putting on all those unnecessary bits at the start of the episode, like this is a special episode of The X-Files, having the cops intro, having a preamble, and then throwing the X-Files tune in, which is really jarring.
Apparently that's because Vince Gilligan didn't originally want the X-Files theme or branding on it at all. But they said, people might tune in and get confused and think, oh, they've put cops on instead and tune off again.
Yeah, I mean, and I do get, it's that forever tug because it's like Ghostwatch almost got it there. Because if they hadn't had that one written by credit, you could have done it all entirely straight. But yeah, the difference is, though, that X-Cops is funny and very intentionally funny.
Yeah, I remember as a teenager, I didn't like it. I don't think I got it because, as we said before, we don't have cops in the UK. So I tuned in and I was very, very confused by this. But watching it again now it's hilarious. It's a really, really good comedy episode.
Yeah. The weird thing about it is a whole lot of it is just the absurdity of the situation at times.
Yeah.
And I think it's how Scully behaves on the camera crew. So the absurdity of the situation is we're chasing a werewolf. Of course, Mulder's going to say that. And then it turns out it's Freddy Krueger.
I read a really interesting kind of critical take on this episode, and I think it was Sarah Stegal that said it. But it's the idea of every single witness that you have of this creature is somebody that is functionally unreliable, and in the real world will be the kind of person who'd appear on this show and you'd completely discredit them. Because you've got the over-the-top drama queen, the really paranoid religious Hispanic woman towards the start, the prostitute, and things like that. And so the only actual kind of true narrator in this is the camera, which sees nothing.
Yes. Yeah, the fact Mulder ultimately gets nothing. I do like it's watching Scully's a delight though, and if at first though, where she's sort of just carefully trying to put something between her and the camera crew, or when she sort of says no, get your own car and just shuts them out. But then it's after she's had the call from Skinner though. I love the fact she just keeps going, the FBI has nothing to hide. She's probably having a whale of a time with it at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fine as an X-Files episode. I mean, in fact, it's actually it's pretty good encapsulation of how the X-Files would be if you had a camera crew, although it's more if you had a camera crew following Scully around, because Mulder normally sees something. This is odd that neither of them see a thing.
I saw somebody online, and I apologise. If you said this, let me know, because I can't remember who to credit to, because I've been flipping through a lot on this. But I saw an argument that some people were having online, where they argued that Mulder's mortal fear is not finding the truth. So does the monster just never appear to him because he's so afraid that he's not going to be able to prove its existence?
I like that. I would be astonished if that was Vince Gilligan's thinking. But I like that. That makes sense.
Yeah. I think it was just a debate I saw on Twitter or something, and I saw it and thought, yeah, actually, that's really good. I like it.
I think it does feel a bit like a semi-cost-cutting measure, given apparently they filmed this episode very fast. Given it normally takes them quite a while to film anything, and this one was they were shooting through it at a rate of knots.
Interestingly, they managed to get a whole bunch of the cops team on board as well. I mean, they had cops cameramen who just piled in saying, yeah, we'll do this. They got cops as editor, the guy who kind of blurs out people's faces on there to make it all look right.
Okay.
And things like that. So you have a lot of the cops team. Even some of the ones who you see huddling in the closet in the house at the end are cops cameramen.
Basically just slamming the door.
Yeah.
Like, oh god, there's more of you! Slap. But yeah, as an episode, it's very funny, but it's hard to talk about.
Yeah.
Because it is. I think the problem is it's everything about it is it's all presentation basically and visual gags and things.
I've seen people online compare it to the Blair Witch, which I guess at the time this came out, found footage wasn't huge.
Yes, that's what I thought. The end of this episode, it's tight, but they could have done it. It's when they go into the crack house at the end.
Yeah.
Something about it just said to me, Blair Witch. Blair Witch came out in 1999, and this is 2000. It's not impossible.
Yeah, Blair Witch was huge when it came out.
It was.
Because it wasn't the first found footage film, but it was the first one that hit great acclaim.
Yeah, but it's when they go into the house and when they go upstairs and all the sort of slightly weird creaking around, and it was... This feels like you're trying to do the Blair Witch. This is your one shot to do Blair Witch in the X-Files.
When was Rec released? Because it's very much like the end of Rec as well.
Rec would have been afterwards, because Blair Witch was literally the year before, like November, October.
But Rec, the Spanish film, was a lot older than Quarantine, its American remake. 2007, yeah. Because Rec has that same kind of ending where they go into the attic and the bad stuff happens.
But no, I would be surprised if someone wasn't watching Blair Witch and said, yeah, we can do this. We've got the capacity to do this now, let's do it.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right, it's very much... apologies, people who haven't seen Blair Witch, and you really should, it's such a historical... kind of
27 years old, come on, or 25 years old, you've got no excuse.
But yeah, the ending is the scariest and the most famous part of the film, where she goes up into the attic, she sees her friend standing in the corner the way the murder victims supposedly stood.
Well, no, they go up first, then they have to come down because that's in the basement.
Oh, is that the basement?
But I
they
think
go
they're
up to
doing
the
inverse,
attic,
yeah.
and then they come back down to the basement, and she finds her friend standing in the corner like the murder victims, and something attacks her, and the camera drops, and that's it.
Yeah. But I think it was when seeing them go upstairs it's that, oh, you've managed to set up the Blair Witch Project in the middle of Los
Yeah, a lot of
Angeles.
people compared this to Blair Witch, and I can totally see it, but in part it is the whole that found footage was a new genre. And I will say again, Blair Witch is not the first, no matter what people keep flipping saying.
Yeah, I've seen Last Broadcast.
Yep.
We've watched Last Broadcast.
Last Broadcast was first.
Although Last Broadcast also has it breaks the whole cinematic conceit bizarrely in the last 10 minutes.
It's a great film, though.
It is, but it's just when it breaks the conceit, it's so jarring they do that.
But yeah, it's because of that you can't really judge it like a normal X-Files episode. Because, often we'd say things like Mulder and Scully are just being dragged around, which they are in this episode, but in part it's because of the framing.
Yeah, and it's because they're pursuing the calls as they're coming in, and where this entity, which they don't even clarify if it is like a tulpa or what it is.
I remembered it being a tulpa, but no, they never say.
Well, Mulder's got no idea what this thing is. He just has a theory about how it's operating. And based on what the limited visuals we get, is that has to be true. I mean, it also does feel like it's a massive cost-saving episode, given the so we can say it's Freddy Krueger and a werewolf and a wasp man and this guy called Chuko who's going to turn this sex worker's head right the way around.
Yeah,
we don't have to show any of that. Just sort of say it's over there in the darkness. Oh, we missed it.
Yeah, that was one of the criticisms of the episode I saw. Most people were overwhelmingly positive, but the others are it's just like 45 minutes of watching people run down dimly lit roads.
Yeah, I think it's missing the point of the fun is watching Mulder and Scully intersect with this other world that's unprepared for them. Because it's things like the cops hold them up at first and they have to identify themselves. And then when she hears Mulder postulate it's a werewolf, she says, "Can you show me your badge again?"
Yeah.
And all the bleep swearing. Sort of
the bleep swearing. That cop who is just basically done with this for the entire thing.
But also like Mulder saying, "Oh, it's not live, see, they have to bleep out that he says something." And
it says, it can't be live because she said bleep. Yeah. And just bleeps him out as he says it, yeah. I also like Mulder's optimism at the end of, it might still look good if they cut it right. There's no saving this.
You'll come out of this one looking possibly better than some of your worst instances, but this doesn't make you look good, Mulder.
I also like that Mulder kind of becomes more starstruck as it goes along. He starts playing to the camera and talking more to the audience, in the kind of Horatio from CSI sort of dialogue.
Well, it's when they walk up to Stephen Edie's house the second time, and he started to talk over the camera shoulder to the cameraman, and Scully goes, "Are you talking to me?" He's like, "No,
yeah.
That's all great. It's just I think it's like if we tried to review an episode of Cobbs, I think you'd struggle as well.
Yeah.
They probably captured it a bit too well.
I'd say it's probably been one of the gems from the series.
Yeah, this is...
Apparently this was an idea that Vince Gilligan has had since season 2 as well, but they kept dismissing it, saying it's too silly, it's just going to look goofy. And at this point, when they thought they weren't going to get another season, they said, you know what, do that thing you've been wanting to do. I think we've said it before as well, that this is the experimental season. They're willing to try a lot more new things now because they don't think there's going to be any more X-Files.
Yeah, and that's interesting for a few reasons. It's like, this one does feel like a genuinely experimental episode in a way the other ones haven't.
Yeah.
Because the other ones have felt, as much as they can be a bit weird, they're still by the numbers, ultimately.
You had ones like Hungry with, we'll show it from the monster's perspective.
Yeah. And that... Enclosure, which is let's be really weird. But do we have much else for X-Cops?
I don't think so.
No.
It's a good episode. It really does stand out. It's very unique. It's very worth watching.
It's very funny.
It's another one of those episodes that I'd say only works if you're familiar with the X-Files. It's not something that I'd recommend to somebody saying, "Hey, watch this, it's great."
Yeah. It does belong on the list of... It's the positive end of a chart of all the X-Files episodes ever.
Yeah. A lot of people do put it in top episode lists and things like that, and I can see why. It's very engaging, very funny, very creative, and it's still creepy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's definitely creepy because we're not sure what is going on and we never see the creature at all.
Well, it also ends on a kind of bleak note with Mulder saying, even if it doesn't appear here, there are plenty of places in the world where there's lots of fear for this thing.
Mulder, that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Oh, did he defeat it? No, I don't think he did.
Mm.
They should be back next week.
One of the kind of bleaker episode endings.
It is. And I do also like the fact they actually were werewolf hunting at first.
Yeah.
But also when Mulder said, "Oh, we're here on a case, we're looking for a werewolf." No, you're here looking for a werewolf. I just happen to be your partner.
Yeah.
That's all good. Oh, well. So next time, because it'll be 2 weeks' time, because we're taking next week off for personal reasons, we will have a infamous episode if you're in any kind of X-Files circles.
First-person shooter.
Yes, I'm pretty sure this is William Gibson's second shot at the X-Files, and oh boy!
It's an experience.
It's an experience. There's an obscure Looper episode about this, which is kind of entertaining as well, which goes into the interesting decisions that they made for their experimental final season. And we can also say poor Lone Gunman, because I think this is their one shot this season.
Yeah, it could well be.
They don't have a lot. Have they actually shown up this season? Is this their first appearance?
Might be. Yeah, I don't think they've shown up, have they?
Wow, that's terrible. But we also have Teeth, which is a Monster of the Week with... No, it's just a Monster of the Week, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a Monster of the Week episode.
It's a Monster of the Week. In the meantime, if you'd like to get hold of us, our email address is thingsgettingstrange42@gmail.com.
You can also find us on social media, and please do let me know if you want us to promote any of your X-Files related stuffs or conventions at the start of our episodes. We're on Twitter and Tumblr, @GetStrange42. We're on Mastodon, @GetStrange42@universedon.com. And you can find us on Facebook by searching for Things Are Getting Strange and X-Files Rewatch Podcast. Additionally, if you're not sick of my voice right now, I also have a channel on Twitch TV called AdverseCamber42 and a connected YouTube channel with the same name. I stream 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 PM GMT, Saturdays at 5 PM GMT, where I stream whatever I'm currently playing on the PlayStation 5. This is currently Yakuza Kiwami. I also occasionally do ad hoc streams. I do give a heads up on my AdverseCamber42 Twitter page before I do these, usually within an hour, because they're just when I have free time. My relaxy ad hoc game at the moment is Cyberpunk 2077, so do join with me if you're interested in that. I'll let you make choices.
Can't say further than that. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/SixthExtinction, where for as little as $3 you can find our Let's Play of the first X-Files game, our review of Mulder and Scully by Catatonia, and our review of Goblins by Charles Grant. And next month will be Whirlwind by Charles Grant, as we work our way through the X-Files novels.
Hooray!
At some point we'll deviate back and do X-Files Resist or Serve, other game.
The PS2 one.
Yeah, which we keep getting told is Resident Evil-like, which sounds more exciting than the FMV game.
Don't you go knocking the FMV game.
I did like how we died all the time.
And the hour it took me to find that cigarette.
Yes, but that was cut out.
You made it look like I found it a lot faster than I did.
I did, mostly because we ran out of things to even talk about after a while. It took that long. Yes, if you'd like to access any of that, $3 will get you everything we've done so far, and we plan to keep on adding to it, and it'll help us out with server fees and things.
Hooray!
Hooray! Our theme music is envisioned by Kevin MacLeod. You can find it on incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Just to remind you, 2 weeks till the next episode, and until then, thanks all for listening, and please remember,
The FBI has nothing to hide.